Why is Donald Trump offering refugee status to me and my people? And what does the data say about the real danger here? I'm an Afrikaner, a South African, currently living in the UK. And I was horrified to see the news that Donald Trump has offered the Afrikaner people from South Africa refugee status, and the fact that it's now also been picked up by the BBC and reported on. So I figured I'd pop on here to share just a few proven facts, and then you can make up your own mind. The land expropriation bill that was passed by the South African government is something that we have been discussing for decades, as it seeks to address the fact that black people had their land taken from them by the apartheid government, but also obviously initially under colonialism a few hundred years ago. And this seeks to address the structural imbalance inherent in most land is owned by white people, but agricultural land particularly is owned largely by Afrikaner people. So who are the Afrikaners? You might have heard about Charlize Theron, or the UFC fighter Dricus du Plessis, or the golfer Ernie Els, or Louis Oosthuizen. All of us from a tiny group of people, about 11.5 million Afrikaans-speaking people in South Africa, but more than half of us are not white. So it's not Afrikaans-speaking people, but all Afrikaners are Afrikaans-speaking. It's also not all white people in South Africa. Many white people in South Africa speak English as a first language. So we are a minority within a minority within a minority, about 3.5 million people. And a lot of the reporting around the land expropriation and the situation of the Afrikaner in South African society is around this concept of some sort of white genocide. Homer Brody wrote a phenomenal book about farm killings that points to the data that says you have about 1% of all homicides in South Africa taking place on farms and the families of farmers. And so whereas the homicide rate in South Africa is shockingly high and a terrible statistic whichever way and wherever it happens, the concept around a white genocide is completely misplaced. I do look at this whole story and wonder, what is this dog whistle meant to be distracting our attention away from? For what it's worth, Elon is not an Afrikaner. We wish he was also not South African.